In Poland, tens of thousands of people have rallied in the capital, Warsaw, for two competing presidential candidates with very different visions. The rival marches took place in the lead-up to runoff votes on June 1st.
The streets of Warsaw, awash in red and white. 1 week out from a runoff presidential election in Poland, tens of thousands took part in dueling political marches. At the head of one, Rafał Trzaskowski, the Liberal mayor of Warsaw. He's a close ally of Prime Minister Donald Tusk and is backed by his ruling Civic coalition. Leading the other was Euro-sceptic nationalist Karol Nawrocki, a conservative historian whose success in the first round surprised the Liberal establishment. He's backed by the populist right-wing Law and Justice Party. Poles travelled from across the country, not just to support a candidate, but also their sharply divergent visions for Poland's future.
Poland will change if Nawrocki becomes president, because it will free itself from foreign influence, from the influence of our German neighbours, and it will become stronger, independent and militarily reinforced.
I'm here because I'm voting for open Poland, for Poland that is in Europe, that is supporting the minorities, the people that struggle with problems, and I am voting for openness.
While Trzaskowski's pro-European stance supports abortion rights and LGBTQ+ inclusion, Nawrocki openly admires Donald Trump and is pushing a nationalist approach that's heavy on anti-immigrant rhetoric. Both men are hoping to pick up votes that went to other candidates in the first round of the election. With a population of 38 million, Poland is the EU's largest eastern member, a key NATO player, and a linchpin in the Western alliance backing Ukraine. A win for Nawrocki could mark a decisive break from this alignment and spell political paralysis for Tusk.
Marcin Buzanski is an advisor at the Warsaw Security Forum. I asked what organisers were hoping to get out of the rallies.
Very glad to be with you. These marches are very important because they are to serve the mobilization of the electorate that will decide in the runoff whether the candidates can win. And they have been going neck and neck. The result of the first round has been surprisingly good for Karol Nawrocki, which is the Law and Justice candidate. He wasn't expected to have such a strong following show up. All the polling agencies were wrong here. So for Karol Nawrocki, of course, it's been very important to show that he can mobilize, keep mobilizing the right-wing voters and try to gain also the votes from the further right groups, which were closer to the Konfederacja party. Now, for Trzaskowski, it is also critical to show that his electoral base supports him and that he can mobilize more candidates who didn't go to vote, who stayed at home, because this is where his untapped electoral potential still lies and needs to be mobilized. So both candidates needed to have a strong turnout. They were relatively strong, but nobody did, I would say, a knockout. You could say that really the race is still neck and neck, and we can be expecting a very fierce fight to the very end, which very hard to tell which candidate is in the lead.
Now, I believe both men back Ukraine, but is that where the similarities end?
Yes, well, the candidates have quite strong differences when it comes to a number of factors. And Trzaskowski is a much more liberal candidate, which has the following of Donald Tusk, of course, the Prime Minister of Poland and his government, and the Civic coalition, the Civic platform electoral base. So he's fairly liberal when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to LGBT rights. He, to an extent, supports migration direction, although here Poland's consensus is much more to the center. He's very strongly pro-EU and pro-Ukraine, whereas his competitor, Karol Nawrocki, he's a law and justice candidate, so he's much more Euro-sceptic. He believes in a strong Euro-Atlantic alliance. He's an outspoken supporter of Donald Trump. He puts caution on support for Ukraine. He's not anti-Ukrainian like the nationalistic candidates, but he's much more also populistic when it comes into his mobilization of the electorate for Poland to be more independent of Europe, of the EU. And he also has a very skeptical approach when it comes to Germany, when it comes to Brussels and other EU countries.
Well, let's talk about him and Donald Tusk. Tusk is Prime Minister, but the more than ceremonial president can make his job tough. What if Tusk doesn't get the candidate he wants?
He will be in trouble. If the president in Poland has not just ceremonial powers, but quite strong prerogatives. First of all, he holds the veto power over legislation. That means that if a legislation is passed by the parliament, the president vetoes it, you need 3/5 of the votes in parliament to overturn it. Tusk doesn't have that kind of majority in parliament, so he cannot really change the government after 8 years of Law and Justice Party. He cannot repair the justice system. He cannot change the civil service law. He cannot change the drastic anti-abortion laws which are currently in place without the president's signature. So he cannot really make the changes that he promised he would deliver and that Poland's electorate voted for if he doesn't have a supportive president. So this is, of course, the stakes are very high. This election is very, very important. And also, if we see a law and justice candidate winning, Nawrocki, it will also mean that when it comes to Poland's position on the international stage and in the EU, it will be weakened. The growth and the strong position now that we have will not be continued. We can see more alignment with countries like Hungary, like Slovakia, possibly also a big overturn towards Donald Trump. So these are, of course, things that would be disruptive when it comes to a sustained strong support for Ukraine, critical for Poland's security at the moment. And a final very important thing, this would be a very, very problematic thing politically for Tusk if Trzaskowski doesn't win, because his coalition might turn into a really weak one and could even fall apart, and he will be in a very bad position before the next election. In that case, all the right-wing parties, including Law and Justice, would be very strongly strengthened.
So a lot at stake for Poland and for Europe here. Marcin, Buzanski, thank you very much for your time.